Jesus Christ.
As I said before, this is Respect Life Sunday, and I have to confess that I have looked upon this homily with fear and trepidation, because when we talk about respect life, we cannot possibly do this without entering into the cultural wars. I don't know about you, but I don't always feel comfortable around Jesus. Matter of fact, I don't think his disciples did. He was always challenging them. I have my opinions, and you have your opinion. But in the end, our opinions really don't amount to much until they are aligned with Jesus Christ and his teaching. So, dear brothers and sisters, let us begin. In the gospel, the burning question of the time were not LGBTQ issues. They were not issues of abortion. The big issue of Jesus' time, and we can tell this because the scribes and the Pharisees approached him, and even the disciples at the end sort of were asking him, what about this thing about divorce? Now, you might ask, why should this even be a question? Because as we know that Moses gave a command that basically allowed divorce. But everyone in the culture knew that there was something unsettling, something very unsettling. It was a patriarchal culture, and men had the power to dismiss their wives, and when they do that, these women would often go into poverty. It was fundamentally unjust. And the consciousness of the culture was sensing that, and they pushed Jesus on that, and he said, what do you have to say about this, Jesus? And Jesus said, it was because of the hardness of your heart that Moses gave you this commandment. In other words, you people will do whatever you want to do. Then, and it's very important, that Jesus, who is our authority, went back to the beginning, the fundamental beginning of things. And if we don't get the fundamental beginnings right, we're going to get everything wrong. It was not so in the beginning, Jesus said. In the beginning, a man was to leave his house, join himself to a woman, and they would become one flesh. Now we know this, that man was created first. He was made in the image of God, and even as being made in the image of God, there was something missing. Pope John Paul II called this original solitude. He wasn't complete. And so God created a woman, also in the image of God, equal image bearers. And it's his design that when the two, the male and the female, come together, there's a certain wholeness. They become one flesh. Why is God so concerned about them becoming one flesh? Because unity is everything to God. The unity of the Trinity is fundamental. He wanted humans to experience the joy of spiritual unity, of physical unity. And out of this, is the great end of being like God in creating children in our image. I love seeing the children here, and I just can tell their parents because their children are little image bearers of their parents. This is of God's design. Now, my father was the oldest of 12 kids during the Depression. His father was a coal miner, and he often didn't see the light of day because he would go in early before the sun rose. When he got out of the mine, the sun was setting. And he worked hard. But everybody in the family thought that his wife, my grandmother, worked harder. She had 12 kids, one after another, one after another. And my dad, back in the 50s and the 60s, he was so enthralled with the medical establishment and the contraceptives that were coming out. And one time he said, my poor parents, they were so ignorant. They just didn't know about these things. Certainly they could have had less kids and have a happier life. Now, at that time, I had no idea what contraceptives were. I didn't know anything about anything. And so in my simple-mindedness, I just asked my father, well, which one of your siblings would you like to be without? Well, there were a couple of them, but he didn't say that. Let me tell you something about my grandmother. She self-gifted herself to her husband. Her husband self-gifted himself to her. And with all the children, she self-gifted herself to all these 12 kids. And this is in a depression. They were, comparatively to us, absolutely dirt poor. And do you know who the most happy, most contented person in the whole family was? My grandmother. She entered into the secrets of life. Now, Pope Paul VI in Humanae Vitae said that there's going to be 4 prophecies that's going to happen with contraception. Okay? First, the morals of society will start to begin to crumble. The second thing is there's going to be more infidelity in our marriages, and marriages will start falling apart. The third thing is that men will disrespect women. And the fourth, that countries and governments will enforce birth control on its people. These are 4 prophecies that have come about. Everything, dear brothers and sisters, hangs on the beginnings, where Jesus takes us. Man and woman. Now, this just out and right and plainly teaches us that there is no such thing, there can be no such thing in the eyes of God in the church, a gay marriage, a man with a man and a woman with a woman. And let us address the confusion that we experience today with our genders. We all know about this. But God created us male and female. XY chromosomes, XX chromosomes. And that can never change. There's no operation that can ever change this reality. And so, dear brothers and sisters, I know that there are people here that are wrestling with these issues. And where do we go with this? Well, we have to ask ourselves the simple question. Did God make a mistake in making me male? Did God make a mistake in making me female? And dear brothers and sisters, there are people out there that think that God makes mistakes. He made a mistake with me. But believe me, if God makes mistakes, that means he's not trustworthy. And if he's not trustworthy, how can we believe in him? How can we even do what we do here? We might as well just fold up the shop and go home. Now, I know these are difficult issues, but I think the starting place is to realize that God made me who I am, and that he must have the answer to my confusion. Now, many of you might be applauding in your heart everything I've been saying. Well, let's talk about our marriages here. Are we really self-gifting ourselves to our spouses? Husbands, are you self-gifting yourself to your wife? Wives, are you self-gifting yourself to your husband? Is there jealousy? Is there selfishness in our marriages? That maybe we look good on the outside, but inside there's deep, deep torment. There may be a lot of disrespect for our spouses. And on Respect Life Sunday, we have to address these things. What about pornography? We all know about this. When we are addicted to pornography, are we respecting those people, those poor people who are on the screen? Many, if not all of them, don't want to be doing what they're doing, but they're slaves of a system supported by you. And you're slaves yourself. Can you say that you really respect life and come to church and be good Catholics? And you might say, oh, Father John, don't talk about pornography in my children. Dear brothers and sisters, wake up. They're watching the same stuff that you are. We live in an adulterous generation. Now, dear brothers and sisters, I'm preaching this to myself. I've got a long way to go in my moral perfection. I don't stand up here more righteous than you. But I do know one thing, that God loves me where I'm at. But he loves me too much to leave me there. And the same thing with you, dear brothers and sisters. If you've been part of abortion, if you're struggling with gender issues, if you're struggling with pornography, if your marriages you're struggling in your marriages to even love your wife, whatever your issues may be, and I know you have issues, I have issues, we must come before God with the assurance that he loves you very much, no matter where you are or what you've done. He loves you. But he loves you too much to leave you where you're at. You know, I believe Jesus loved the scribes and the Pharisees. There's no place in the gospel that said that. He's always in fighting with the religious establishment. He would rather spend time with prostitutes and sinners and people we probably here would feel would be beneath us. Interesting, isn't it? Because he loves them right where they're at. But he never, ever just left them there. He always challenged them to live up to the image of God, like he created us to be. God loves us. He loves us too much to leave us where we're at.